All right. Good evening, everybody. I would like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Marla Billinghurst. I will be chairing the panel this evening. With me on the panel are Ms. Kira Penner and Mr. Ethan Robson. Representing the Assessment and Taxation Department is Mr. Clayton Daichun, and our administrative personnel this evening is Mr. Tristan Bradeen. I probably got that wrong, sorry. Okay. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matter must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. Sorry. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish, and once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today, and the session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the Board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 through 7 on our docket today. Mr. Breeden, please affirm the assessors and the applicant's testimony.
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Clayton Daichun.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Perfect. Mr. Applicant, please stand. Please state your full name.
Trevor Smith.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please be seated.
Okay, thank you very much. The first item we will be hearing on this evening's docket is number 1, 876 Sturgeon Road. Mr. Assessor, please proceed when you are ready.
Okay, it is file number 24-3990. Roll number 074386001000. Address is 876 Sturgeon Road. We're looking at roll year 2025 assessed values at $4,968,000. It is a 40S property. It's an apartment building that is 6 buildings, 2 to 4 stories high. That is due to it having a townhouse and regular apartments on the site. The land area is at 61,828 square feet, and the gross floor area is at 46,943. There's 43 suites and 27 outdoor parking stalls. Then continuing on to page 3 is just a exterior photo of the property and a Google map of the location of the property in Winnipeg. Page 4 is the income value summary. It has 28 one-bedrooms, 6 two-bedrooms, and 9 three-bedrooms. for a total of 48 units. The average monthly rent per unit is $1,087.08. And again, it is a 40S property because it is a not-for-profit building. The gross potential rent is $569.33 with a vacancy of 2.6%. Brings the gross effective income to $546,349. The expenses are $302,896, brings the NOI to $243,453. And the cap rate is at 4.9%, brings the value to $4,968,000. And that works out to $115,500 market value per suite. And then continuing on to page 5 is the rent comparables. So I pulled 4 comparables with similar suite mixes in the area and tried to get roughly around the effective year built of the property. So you can see that they range from 1038 to 1190 rent per unit. And then continuing on to our CMHC table for apartments. This is just used to show that our model is under the potential for market rents. So you can see the first table is just showing the apartment rents for the normal apartment buildings, and that works out to a weighted average of 1040. And then the second table is for the townhouse units. And that works out to an average per unit at 1554.60. And then continuing on to page 7 is just the summary of these tables, and you can see the market potential rent is at 669,406, and our modeled rent is at 569.33. So about 16% below market rents. Continuing on to page 8 is just the table showing you where we got these market rents from. Along with page 9 is the townhouse table. And then page 10 is our cap rate table, just showing how our cap rates stack up to the Collier, CBRE, and Cushman and Wakefield. You can see our cap rates range from 4.75 to 5.45% for apartments for the 20th to 80th percentile. And then again, on page 11 is our cap rate evidence. So these are actual sales that occurred in the market during the reference period. The purpose for showing these individual cap rates is to illustrate the accuracy of the model and substantiate the model-derived cap rates. They are not meant to be comparable specific to the subject property. The NOI has been developed through stabilizing owner-reported income and expense information, and we use 3 years stabilized INEs up into the sale date. Cap rates have been derived by dividing the property's NOI by its sale price. And you can see that these cap rates range from 3.46% to 5.74%. And they're kind of all over the city because it's tough to find valid sales with good mailers. And so there's our cap rate evidence. And then page 12 is the Municipal Assessment Act excerpts. Then continuing on to page 13 is just the information from the INE, just showing that is a not-for-profit property, along with the mailers. Continuing on to page 14. And that is my evidence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, do you have any questions for the assessor?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I have a number of questions that would apply equally to all of the properties today. So if I ask the questions for the first property, is it all right if we carry forward those question and answers for the remainder of the properties on the docket?
Yes.
Do it for everyone.
If it's for all of them, if it's only for specific ones, just make us aware at the time of which ones.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you. I guess the first question maybe then would be given the workload at the assessment department, I'm assuming you haven't had the opportunity to inspect any of the properties on the docket today?
No, I have not.
Okay. Um, so you wouldn't be able to speak to condition, size, et cetera, then essentially, right?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sorry, I apologize for my voice. It's
Oh, that's okay.
offending me here. So you wouldn't be able to speak to condition, size of the units essentially then, correct?
Not specifically, no. Like I know on page 5, it shows the gross floor area per unit. But I can't speak to the condition necessarily, no.
And flipping to your page number 7, so the city has CMHC averages. I think these were in all of the briefs today, is that correct?
I believe maybe not one. I'm pretty sure
Okay.
most of them, though.
Okay, I think it is. So the CMHC, these are average rental rates by area essentially, correct? So this would represent an average apartment on the market
Yeah, for the area. Yeah.
for the area. Okay. So there would be variability, obviously, above and below that, dependent on the property that we're looking at.
I would believe so, yeah. But
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure.
And and this is capitalization rate question. So on page number 10, at the top of the page, there's some discussion with regard to capitalization rates and how they're derived. So, Madam Chair, if you'll just bear with me, there is a question here. I'm just going to read a little bit of the text. For the 2025 general assessment, April 1, 2023 reference date, capitalization rates were derived from model generated estimates of the net operating income and sale prices that were time adjusted to April 1, 2023. So if I read that correctly, the sales that occurred in the marketplace, the actual income and expense at the time of sale is not used, but a model generated net income is used. And then that is divided by not the actual sale price, but by a time adjusted price. Is that correct?
I believe so. And our model takes into account actual INEs to generate the model. So, but I don't know. I don't believe that's using actual NOIs for each one.
So the capitalization rates that that are fed into the model then are done in this manner using model generated essentially model generated income and time adjusted sales.
I believe so. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. I believe that is all of my questions. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Penner, do you have any questions for the assessor?
Just one, I think, in terms of the capitalization rate evidence on page 11, are these buildings a mixture of townhomes and apartment buildings? Is it more weighted towards one or the other?
I'm actually not. I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure.
And in your experience or your opinion, would that impact the cap rate, whether we're dealing with townhomes or apartment buildings?
Again, I'm not too sure. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Just making a note for 1 second. Okay, Mr. Robson, do you have any questions for the assessor?
I do not have any questions for the assessor at this time.
Okay, thank you. My question has been answered already, so we can move on to Mr. Smith's presentation whenever you're ready, please.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So the subject property, 876 Sturgeon Road, is actually a nonprofit, pardon me, nonprofit low-income housing development. It is owned and operated by a nonprofit entity, that being Friends Housing, Inc. And it's comprised of a mixture of 2 and 3 bedroom townhomes and 1 and 2 bedroom apartment units. So there is a 4-story small apartment building on site, and a number of townhomes as well. Now, the intent and mandate of the property itself is to provide affordable housing to low-income singles and families in the area. And there is an element as well of accommodating those residents of the city with mental health challenges, with low income, low rental accommodation. So that is the purpose of the property. If we look at my page number 3, we can see the age of the property, 1989. Was originally constructed. It essentially dates to that time frame. When we get into the photos, you can see that there's a total of 43 units, 15 of them being townhome units and 27 of them being apartment units. And you can see the individual breakdown there on page number 3 as well. The photos of the property begin on page number 4 and onwards. Certainly the property would be considered in below average condition. Given the intent and mandate of the property, they build the units to a basic spec, with the intent of having long wearing surfaces, nothing fancy obviously, but the finishes, carpeting, kitchen cabinetry, bathrooms are essentially original to the date of construction, with the exception of where things would have had to be replaced. So you can see that in the photos as you move through the pages through page number 11. I'll let you flip through those rather than identify everything that we're looking at, but it's fairly self-explanatory. Actually, right through page number 13 is what we're looking at. So you can see the condition and the type of finish and wear and tear that we're looking at. The site for the property is shown on page number 14, with the main apartment building surrounded by the townhomes, and then the actual location in St. James on page number 15 to the west of Sturgeon Road. Let's move forward into the valuation. So we do have a number of points that we agree on here, so I'm not going to take a lot of time on them. We do agree on the rental income to be applied to the subject property at $1,087 per month. If you look at my page number 17, and I provide this for background, and you're looking at the final value, the actual total revenue for the property based on rent geared to income was $274,815 plus plus subsidy, etc. So the actual rent collected was $274. We're obviously not going to base valuation on that, as it's much too low overall. We can't apply rent geared to income rents in developing a market value, but that is what they actually collected for the property. So the the $1,087 per unit produces an income estimate of $560,933. Given the property that we're looking at, the size of the units, number of bedrooms, location, etc., we felt that that was appropriate. Also, looking at the condition of the property. Moving on to the expense side, my page number 18, we are in agreement on vacancy rate at 2.6%. That is an appropriate rate to apply. The expense allowance, the 2022 income and expense for the subject property had a total operating expense of $330,530. Once we deducted all non-realty expenses from the income and expense questionnaire. This comes out to an effective, or rather an expense allowance of 60.5% of effective gross income. Which again would be too high in order to use to develop a fair market value. So we're not going to use the actuals in developing the market value and instead defer to the city of Winnipeg's expense estimate of 55.44%. So that gives you $302,896. So up to this point, we are in agreement. But again, the revenue is lower and the actual expenses are higher than what we're using in our valuation, something to keep in mind. Moving on to capitalization rate, and this is critical for all the properties that we're looking at today. So I'll cover a fair bit of ground in this first property and we can carry forward my comments for the most part to all the remainder of the property. I'll answer a couple of questions or queries that came up to start with there. First of all, townhomes and whether they trade for the same capitalization rate typically as a normal market apartment, and they don't. Demand for townhomes from investors is lower. The expenses that you typically see as far as capital costs to them are typically significantly greater than they are for a standard market apartment. And if you think about it logically, if you're looking at a townhome on whatever amount of land, you'll say have 8 townhomes or something of that nature. I'm just picking up round figures here. You'll have essentially 8 roofs to look after. You have 8 different heating systems, electrical systems, water heaters, etc., drainage runoff. So you have 8 units on that parcel of land. If you were to develop it as a standard market apartment, well, you would have significantly more units with the same amount of roof and obviously 1 or 2 larger water heaters, but not one for every individual unit, etc. So your costs are significantly lower. And then townhomes typically have greater number of bedrooms, 3, 4, sometimes 5. And in the marketplace, that can be a little sketchier in terms of having full occupancy, having people that require that amount of space. And if you look on the market, generally what you're seeing developed up to now and being developed are not townhomes. You're seeing standard market apartments be developed. So that comes into play with regard to capitalization rate, and cap rates for townhomes are typically higher than they are for standard market apartments. Now, all that being said, we're looking at a lot of properties today, this one included, that are nonprofit, low-income housing. And the challenge in developing a market value for properties such as this is the methodology to be used. So as the city and ourselves do, we look at the property and assess it with regard to income and expenses and vacancy and allowances, etc., as a standard market apartment. What would that property rent for on the marketplace? What would the expenses be in a typical scenario? And arrive at your net operating income. And then when you're determining the final market value, obviously cap rate comes into play, and you can't directly compare income restricted and low income nonprofit properties directly to standard market apartments. And there's a very good reason for that. I'll get into it in my text here, but logically, if you think about the situation, you have a standard market apartment that is unrestricted. You can lease it to whoever you want. You can increase the income. You can renovate it, et cetera, at your will. That's your standard market apartment. If you have the exact same apartment immediately beside it, same location, everything's exactly the same, but it's a nonprofit, low income residence, well, there are significant risks that are involved in purchasing that property for an investor that you wouldn't face in buying the standard market apartment. And I'll get into that in my discussion here on my page number 19 regarding capitalization rate. So the difference is you determine your ultimate net operating income, which in many cases is lower for the nonprofit, and then apply capitalization rate that reflects the risk that would be taken on by an investor in acquiring a property such as this versus a normal market apartment. So page number 19, I'll again only cover this once, but I do need to run through some of it. First of all, there are essentially no transactions of nonprofit apartments on the market, so we can't directly compare sales of these properties in order to determine market value. So that sets that aside. Additionally, social and affordable housing properties cannot legitimately be directly compared to standard market apartment transactions, as social housing properties have considerable restrictions and burdens that are not present for market apartments. Rental income restrictions, rental market restrictions, smaller pool of tenants, additional operating expenses, as we've demonstrated, physical condition, as we've demonstrated, and then disposition restrictions on the owner of the property, as well as other factors, can negatively impact the market value of the social housing property. As stated by Mr. Richard Colton, he's an accredited appraiser from the United States. He's an expert in this field. He has a book titled Valuation and Market Studies for Affordable Housing. He states, developing a market-derived cap rate for an income-restricted property begins with an analysis of the available rates for similar unrestricted properties. Then these rates are adjusted based on the risk factors that an investor would consider in developing a cap rate. The result is a cap rate based on market factors and associated risks. In the final analysis, property tax assessment must take into account the public purpose of the project, the overall benefits and burdens, and the restricted nature of the operating rents. So that is the theory, accepted theory behind the assessment of nonprofit, low-income, multifamily properties. So that is how the capitalization rate should be selected, applied in these particular circumstances. So let's now look at market evidence. On my page number 19, and actually onto page number 20, I give you our market study with regard to capitalization rates. These are actual transactions that took place in the market of standard market apartments. They vary as the cities do throughout the city. They're not all in the immediate area, but what this does provide is an overall look at what investors are willing to pay for what type of property in the marketplace. So they vary between age, size, location, demand, etc. But let's have a look at a few of them and determine what an appropriate rate for a subject property such as this would be. So we'll start at the top here. I have 3 properties from transacted in 2020, 2 fairly significant ones built in 1969 in Transcona, both trading in 2020, both at a 5.25% capitalization rate. Following that, we have a property built in 2015 on McPhillips, number 3, 90 units, some more modern, built in 2020, or rather sold in 2020, trading again at a capitalization rate of 5.25%. Pardon me. If we look at that first page, our capitalization rate ranges from a low of 4.95% all the way up to a high of 7.9%. Now, cap rates over 7% are not particularly common, nor are those under 5%. Typically, we're looking at a range of 5 to 6% for the most part in terms of cap rates. On page number 20, we have additional capitalization rate chart. Again, transactions in our marketplace. These ones are a little newer, 2021 through 2022. And you can see the range there is between a low of 4.6% up to a high of 5.8%. Now, those end essentially in 2022. So again, typically the range that we're seeing is in that 5 to 6% range. So let's look at the main or 2 of the main commercial brokerages in the market that participate in the sale of multifamily properties, that being Colliers and Cushman Wakefield. On my page number 21, I give you a sample of 3 different cap rate reports from 3 cycles. So 2018, 2020, and 2023. 2023 is our valuation date. This is the first quarter of 2023 that we're referring to here. Now, if you look at the charts here, the first one is 2018, then 2020, and 2023. What you see is stability. And they're essentially saying the low end of the range for both low and high rise is 5%, and the upper end of the range is 6%. So 5 to 6%. Now, subsequently, and I didn't have it when I put together this brief, Colliers has put out a correction to this, and they have increased their rates for 2023 from 5.5% to 6.5%. Taking into account the interest rate environment that we're operating in as of the valuation date. Now, let's move forward to my page number 22, and I will direct you, again, we'll only cover this once, but we have Cushman Wakefield, Q1 2023 cap rate survey as well. At the top of the page, they break it down between high rise and low rise. We kind of have both here. And they're indicating 4.75 to 5.5% for high rise apartments, which this isn't really at 4 stories, and 5 to 5.75% for low rise apartments. Now, very similar marginal tweaks here, essentially. Another critical component with regard to capitalization rate for all properties today is Again, the interest rate environment that we were operating in as of the valuation date of April 1, 2023. So between the spring of 2022 and valuation date of April 1, 2023, we had an increase in Bank of Canada interest rate from 0.5% in spring of 2022, increasing to 4.75% as of April 1, 2023, the valuation date. So you have a 4.25% lift in Bank of Canada interest rates over that time span, up to 4.75%. Now, what happens when interest rates rise? Well, mortgage lending rates are directly correlated with them. So as interest rates rise, so do mortgage lending rates. So if you were an investor looking to acquire a property on April 1, 2023, and your rate had changed 4% from early 2022, well, your cost of borrowing is going to have gone up very considerably. This will have a direct impact on what your return is on buying that property. And obviously, you'll be willing to pay less for that property in order to preserve your expected rate of return. You would not be willing to pay the same amount for the property as you would have previously because your costs have gone up quite dramatically, and that needs to be accommodated in what the property is valued at. Now, all of that means capitalization rates increase as the interest rates and the lending rates increase, so do capitalization rates. So if the Bank of Canada interest rate was 4.75%, your mortgage lending rate will be greater than that. Is anybody going to be buying at a 4.75% cap rate or under 5% as of the valuation date? No, they're really not. And when we look at the market, what this increase in interest rates did in that time frame was it essentially shut the market down. You see exceptionally few transactions taking place in later 2022 into 2023 because buyers were not willing to pay the price that was being asked for properties because obviously they weren't worth it because the lending rate had changed so dramatically. So very direct impact has to be taken into account on all properties. So looking at all of this detail, our standard range is 5 to 6%. We have all of the additional factors that low income nonprofit housing face, and then we have the interest rate environment. We have gone to the upper end of the range at 6% in selecting our cap rate, not beyond. We're not looking at 7% or 6.5% or anything of that nature. We're simply at the upper end of the normal market capitalization range. So we've applied 6% in our valuation. So if you look at my page 23, this is all summarized. We're in agreement down to the net operating income, taking into account again, they get less income, more expenses in their actual operation, but we're deferring to what the city has used here. And then we apply the cap rate of 6%. This gives us our final market value of $4,058,000. And the addenda simply includes the income and expense for the subject property. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. Mr. Deitchen, do you have any questions for Mr. Smith?
Yeah, just a few. And again, I think these will apply to most of the properties here. So from the looks of it, I guess we're mostly looking at cap rate on this one. So the main reason for you adjusting the cap rate is due to the affordable housing aspect of it?
No, it's the entire gamut. So the market is showing us that cap rates are between 5% and 6%. We have the interest rate environment that is again increasing cap rates, and then we also have the restrictions that an additional risk that an investor would face in taking on a property such as this. That
Okay, I should have said it's partially a reason. Okay. Again, I guess we're looking at market values. Would you not agree that the highest and best use for this property is not affordable housing?
Well, and that's where the city and I differ. In valuing these properties for market value, you can't ignore the situation of the property itself. So if you were to look at buying this property, it doesn't magically, and I'm not being facetious here, it doesn't change and become a market apartment. It's still a nonprofit, low income apartment with residents that have the right to stay in place under the terms of the agreements that they had signed, what their lease states essentially. So you're not buying a market apartment, you're buying this. So you can't buy it and immediately expect a typical return that you get on a market apartment, because that's not what you're acquiring.
Okay, I guess, well, so are you saying that if sold, you could not use market rents to rent out these properties?
No, and I've had that discussion with residential tenancies. You couldn't buy this and immediately go through and change the leases and rent structure, etc. for the property. You're buying what's in place. You can evolve it over time, but it's not going to be a quick process, as the tenants again have the legal right to remain in place on the basis they're there in.
Okay, so eventually you could change it to a market apartment and these restrictions would not apply then, correct?
Well, I suppose over time you could do that, but if I were a low income resident, I wouldn't be inclined to move out. And typically there's an accommodation with regard to rent renewal, etc.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Ms. Penner, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. So I'm curious about the I guess the conditions that are tied to the property, whether are these restrictions something that is registered on title, or it's something that is subject to the individual leases of the property?
Are they registered on title? Well, I don't know that the mandate is necessarily on title, but the mortgage lending, etc., would be tied to the operation of it as the according to the mandate that they had in the first place, and the leases would reflect the situation of the property, that being rent geared to income, etc.
And on page 17, it indicates that there, in terms of the actual revenue or actual income of the property, that there's a subsidy in place. Would that run with the property, or is that specific to the organization that's currently running it?
Well, that would be specific to the organization that's currently running it at this time. That would have to be applied for. So again, this is another wrinkle, right? If you were to buy this property and it's rent geared to income, and then the subsidy is in place from MHRC in this case for the original operator. There's no guarantee that that's going to continue forward for you, because as an investor, obviously your intent is to probably turn it into a market apartment at some point. Nobody would buy this as a nonprofit. So you would have to go through that lengthy exercise and lose money all along the way, right? So when we value it based on the same NOI that the city is using, that's as if it were operating as a market apartment, but it doesn't generate anywhere near that amount.
I think that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Robson, do you have any questions?
No, my question was asked and answered there, so I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay, I do not have any questions either. Thank you. Is there a need for summary from either party?
No, thank you.
Oops. Sorry, I guess just quickly, again, we have to look at this on the highest and best use, using market values and our cap rate tables more than support our assessment. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much.
So I will then have a summary if that's all right, Madam Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
So the exercise that we face is coming up with fair market value for the property. So what you can't ignore is in determining fair market value is again the legal situation and the restrictions, etc., that a property may have versus other properties. So by valuing it exclusively as a standard market apartment when it isn't and doesn't perform that way, you're overvaluing the property. So that's why we have made the adjustments we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we can move on to the next matter on this evening's docket, which is number 2 on the docket, 2451 Portage Avenue. Mr. Assessor, please proceed when you are ready.
Give me 1 second. Hold on. Oh, there we go. Okay. So this file number is 24-4438. The roll number is 0706072900. The address is 2451 Portage Avenue. Roller is 2025. Assessed value is at $2,573,000. It is a apartment that is one building, 3 stories high, built in 1955, and effective age of 1975. There are 18 suites and 12 outdoor parking stalls. Page 2, you can see there was a sale in 2012. Page 3 is just an exterior photo with a brief write-up of the property. And then page 4 is just Google Maps of the property. Page 5 is an income value summary. So there's 6 1-bedrooms, 12 2-bedrooms for 18 suites at an average monthly rent of $1,068.36. The gross potential is $237,666 with a vacancy rate of 2.6%. Brings the gross effective income to $224,766. The expenses are at $101,257, and the NOI is at $123,509. Cap rate is at 4.8%, brings the value to $2,573,000, and that works out to about $143,000 per suite. Again, page 6 is the rent comparables. Again, trying to find similar suite mixes in the area with a similar year built. You can see comparable 2 is the neighboring property. It's practically identical, just a slight difference in effective year built. I'm not too sure why. Yeah, they range from 1041 to 1089 a unit, and the subject's at 1068 a unit. Again, page 7 is the cap rate table, and page 8 is the cap rate evidence, showing support for our cap rate, our model cap rate. Page 9 is the Municipal Assessment Act excerpts. Page 10 is the income and expense mailers. And you can see that on page 11 and 12 is the actual rent and expenses, and you can see that the NOI comes out to $103,000. I believe. I'm sorry, I'm trying to. But that is also including, or sorry, not $120,000, $141,000. Sorry, it's just hard to read. So $141,000, and our NOI is coming out to 123,500, I believe. So that supports our model NOI. And then on page 14 is just a permit for some interior alterations. So that's the reasoning for the effective age on the building. So you can see just interior alterations to the building to renovate all 18 suites, replace windows, and that total is about $383,000. And that was in 2013. And then you can see on page 15 just the summary of the renovation costs. And that is my evidence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, do you have any questions?
Yes, just one really. So on page 14, you have the permit detail regarding renovations. Those renovations took place in 2013, correct?
Yeah.
According to the, okay. So it's not as though it's newly renovated, correct?
No, it was just to show that the renovations were done.
Okay. That's all of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Penner, do you have any questions?
No, I think I'm okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Robson, do you have any questions?
Just one. Mr. Assessor, you did not inspect this property either, did you not? Or did you, sorry?
I didn't inspect any of these properties today.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay, thank you. I have no questions. Mr. Smith, please proceed when you are ready.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So our subject property today, so this is not a nonprofit low income facility. It is a standard market apartment, 2451 Portage Avenue. You can see on my cover page a picture of the property from the roadway. It's originally built in 1975. And we have a total of 18 units, 6 one-beds and 12 two-bedroom units. Now, in addition, on my page number 3, you can see the assessment history for the subject property. In 2023, you can see the reduction down to $2,082,000. Our market value for 2024 is $2,278,000. Looking forward into the pictures of the property itself, beginning on page 4, again, exteriors, and then we get into the units themselves. This is what they look like. You have your baseboard heaters there, and the renovation from 2013. So fairly standard stuff, pretty typical market apartments. The site and the location are shown on my page numbers 8 and 9. I don't believe that they have parking space for every unit here. In fact, they don't. They have 12 stalls and 18 units. So 6 of them are without parking. Something to note. Location, obviously on Portage Avenue. And we can move into the valuation itself, beginning on my page number 11. Now, I'll point out that our rental income at $1,060 per unit per month. This is, pardon me, the average of what's actually charged. Fully occupied, gross potential revenue is $229,006, which equates to that $1,060 per month per unit. I give you the CMHC stats there to back that up, as well as a few comparables on the following page. It fits within the market. In this case, it's actually quite close to what the city has at $230,000 in the model. Not always like that. In this case, it is. So we believe it's at market, so we used that as our figure for gross rent without adjustments. We've included the parking and laundry revenue for the subject property in our valuation as well. So that brings it up a bit beyond what the city's projection for overall revenue would be. We're not in disagreement with the vacancy allowance. 2.6% is in line with the market. There'd be no reason for the subject to be any different, so we defer to that for this. Our expense calculation is shown at the bottom of page number 13. Now, again, typically, when possible, we do a 3-year stabilization of the expenses to ensure that we're not looking at anything that's either over or under market. That's what we've done on page number 13. You can see the expenses from 2020 through 2022 range from 99,000 up to 110,000. This has been stabilized at $106,405. You can see how that's been done line by line, where it makes sense, where there's no standard trend. We have a 3-year average. Obviously, property taxes are what property taxes are. Insurance goes up year by year, so we have the actual there as well. And the trend of gas for the subject property has been a steadily increasing number. So we've used an estimate somewhat under the 2022 for that as well. We've applied 5% of effective gross income for the property management, which brings the property management number down. And everything else appeared to be in line. So our expenses are $106,405 based on the actuals. Capitalization rate, exact same information that we were looking at previously, with the exception of the text regarding nonprofits. The same market comparables are here. Again, these are actual transactions based on the actual net operating income as of the time of sale over the actual sale price at the time of sale. No adjustments, no projections, no modeling, no time adjustments. These are the actual capitalization rates as of the transaction date. So again, we're looking at a typical range, 5 to 6% for the most part. Obviously, somewhat over that, some slightly under that, but nearly exclusively falling within that range. We look at the more recent transactions at the bottom of my page number 14. You look at the 2 most recent ones occurring in early 2022, I believe. We're looking at sales of 14 and 16 suites, one built in 71, one built in 53. So similar to the subject, which was built in 55, effective year that the city has of 75. And we have cap rates of 5.9 and 5.6% for those particular properties, both in good locations, Arden being in the Hastings, Dakota area in St. Patel, and Corydon, as we know, in River Heights. The remainder that are there for you, again, typically between 5 and 6%. And we have the exact same situation with regard to rental rates increasing. So, or rather, interest rates increasing and mortgage lending rates increasing, therefore capitalization rates also increasing. So if we look at my page 18, we summarize this. We've applied a capitalization rate of 5.5%. In the middle of the 5 to 6% range. Again, immediately prior to the valuation date, we have mortgage lending rates going up by 4%. So obviously there's going to be an impact on the cap rate as well. So nothing is going to be transacting at the low end of that range. So we are using a 5.5% cap in our valuation. So the actual rent and parking and laundry standard vacancy rate, stabilized expenses, and we come to an NOI of $125,268, capped at 5.5%, gives us a final market value of $2,278,000. And that is my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Assessor. Do you have any questions?
I guess just one quick one for clarification purposes. Looking on page, I guess 14, and then on, I guess on page 17, you're speaking about the mortgage rates and how that affects the overall cap rate. I'm just looking at the ones that are the highest, 7.5, 7.5. Sorry, I'm just on page 14. So sale 4, sale 9, sale 10 are all the highest at 7.5, 7.9%. But from my memory, 2020 was the height, I guess the height of COVID, where mortgage rates all dropped to like an all-time low. So how does that change the overall rate to the highest on this list? How does it correlate, I guess?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting question. So you've selected 3 properties here, 470 Alexander, 510 Gray, and 499 Osborne. Now, obviously cap rates vary according to a lot of things, demand for the property, location, condition, the actual rental structure of the property, potential for the future, etc. When we look at the locations here, well, 470 Alexander, that explains that one essentially. Similar with 510 Gray, 499 Osborne, if it's the property that I'm thinking of, and I believe it is on South Osborne. Built in 55, so it's an older block, and it had significant capital requirement, if I remember correctly, for that particular property that would drive a higher cap rate there.
Okay, so
And
I guess it's
obviously there's going to be some variability throughout time with regard to cap rate as well.
okay.
Not every property is going to trade at 5.25% in 2022 or 2020 or whatever year, right? There is variability.
Okay, so I guess it's ultimately it's hard to find a direct correlation of mortgage rates to cap rates because there's so many different factors that go into it then, correct?
No, I would disagree. And given our time restrictions here, I don't go through the exercise, but if we go back in time and you look at the change in Bank of Canada rates and lending rates and compare them to capitalization rates, there's a direct correlation over time where when the lending rates increase, so do capitalization rates. So it's not a theory, it's proven.
Okay,
And
no,
if it costs me more to buy a property in terms of not the price paid, but the operation of that property, because I have to pay more for my mortgage and my return is less, so I'm going to be willing to pay less for it, so the cap rate will be higher.
okay, no further questions, thanks.
Thank you very much. Ms. Penner, do you have any questions for Mr. Smith?
No, thank you.
Mr. Robson, do you have any questions for Mr. Smith?
No, I'm also good.
Thank you, as am I. All right, we can move on to the next matter on the docket then, which would be, sorry, bear with me for 1 second, 155 Sinawick Bay. Sorry, Mr. Assessor, please proceed when you are ready.
Okay, this file number is 24-3925. Phone number is 0756903050, and the address is 155 Sinawick Bay. Full year's 2025, assessed values at $8,104,000. It is a school tax exempt apartment, one building, 4 stories high, built in 2007. There's 51 suites, 39 outdoor parking stalls. Continuing on to page 3, it's just a quick exterior photo of the building along with Google Maps showing the location. Page 4 is the income value summary. So it shows 24 1-bedrooms, 27 2-bedrooms for a total of 51 units at an average monthly rent per unit of $1,148.17. The gross potential rents at 702,680, vacancies at 2.6%, gross effective incomes at 684,410, and the expenses are at 287,315, bringing NOI to 397,095, and the cap rate is at 4.9%. Brings the overall value to $8,104,000, and that works out to about $159,000 per suite. Again, on page 5 is the rent comparables. Tried to find, again, similar suite mixes in the area. Tried to find newer built ones as well. You'd see that the average monthly rents range from $1,192 to $1,289, and our average monthly rent per unit's at $1,180 or $1,148.17. Page 6, again, the CMHC tables, so showing the average rents, and this time I used the year built because it's tough to use the market region ones for these newer built properties because it uses apartment rents from pre-1940s and even some that are, I think, around 100 years old. So I don't think it's very indicative of market value for a newer apartment. So you can see that the weighted average per unit's at $1,393.06. On page 7 is just the summary of this table. You can see that the CMHC potential rent is at $852,552, and our model rent's at $702,980, so about 18% below that. Again, page 8 is just the table showing you where we got these values from. Again, page 9 is the cap rate table, with page 10 being the cap rate evidence. Page 11 is the Municipal Assessment Act. And then page 12 to all the way to the page 19 is the income and expense mailer, with page 20 is showing a quick summary of the property. Again, I should have mentioned that these are seniors housing buildings. And then page 21 is just an overview of the area. And then page 22 is just showing you the floor plans and information about the building. And that is my evidence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. Do you have any questions for the assessor?
I have no questions.
Thank you. Ms. Penner, do you have any questions for the assessor?
Just one, and I guess we could have asked this of any of the buildings, but there's insufficient parking for everyone to have, or each of the units to have a stall. Does that impact the value conclusion at all?
Not from my understanding, no. I mean, it's pretty, I guess it's pretty close, and like some people don't drive and they don't need a parking spot, but I don't know how it affects the value. I don't believe it does.
Well, that was all for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Robson. Do you have any questions?
No, once again, Mr. Chair, I do not.
Okay, thank you. Nor do I. So, Mr. Smith, please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just a point of interest here, and I'll admit that it took me a while to notice this as well, but Sinowik is actually Kiwanis spelled backwards. So the bay itself and the properties, all the properties that we're going to deal with from here forward, were all developed by the same Kiwanis organization. So the bay is actually named after them, just in reverse. Just interesting bit of info. Anyway, moving forward.
Feel like we're on Jeopardy. Okay.
Yes. Spend a lot of time here, so you have to have interest where you can. So moving forward with the subject property. So 155 Sinuik Bay, built in 2007. So it's not new, it is newer, but it is not a new apartment. Yes, it is a nonprofit seniors housing, 55 plus, designed with seniors and their needs in mind. With regard to the parking, yes, it is underparked. You have 39 stalls and 51 suites. So in a normal situation for a standard market apartment, you typically have more stalls than you do suites. Obviously, the seniors, not everybody is driving, or they take cabs, etc. So it is slightly different, but that should be kept in mind with regard to desirability of the property as a standard market apartment from a renter's perspective as well. This is in St. James, so it's not right on Portage Avenue or anything like that with regard to transit. So let us move into the valuation. Again, nonprofit seniors housing, my page number 3 gives you a bit of detail with regard to the subject. It is owned and developed by St. James Kiwanis. This one is called St. James Kiwanis Villa Inc. for the subject. And we have a total of 51 units, 24.
Oh, excuse me.
Sorry. Bless you.
No, thank you.
51 total units, 24 one beds and 27 2-bedroom units. The photographs begin on page 4. You can see the exteriors, interior, common areas, moving into the suites themselves. So again, of its time frame, built in 2007, fairly straightforward. And as indicated, it is for seniors, so they are designing some of the features such as bathroom layout, doorway sizes, etc., with seniors in mind. So wider doorways to accommodate mobility issues, things of that nature. So a little bit open plan in some areas, some fixturing in bathrooms in some cases. So that is the property itself. The actual site is located on the northwest corner of Sinuik Bay, as we look at my page number 10. And the location in St. James in the Silver Heights area is shown on page number 11. Now let's move forward into the valuation itself. So I have given you the actual rental rate ranges for the 2 different bedroom types. 1 beds ranging between $927 and $984 per month. 2 beds between $1,128 and $1,228 per month, with the actual annual figures, and the total overall fully occupied potential rental income is $681,264. I will point out at this point, the actual rent collected was $639,546. So somewhat under what the fully occupied figure would be. Now, is that market? Well, if we we skip forward and we look at what the city has projected, it's ever so slightly under what the city has projected for the subject property. And in terms of averages for the St. James area, it is either at or again ever so slightly under the average in that particular area. Now, again, the design of the units is somewhat specific to seniors, so we don't believe that it is under market. We feel that it is actually at market. They're achieving market rents. That's their intent in assigning these rental rates to the subject. It's not a low income as such. It's more of a nonprofit in terms of the rents being charged for this particular property. So they are operating at market rent. We've assigned that to the subject. Vacancy, we're not in disagreement over. And if you look at my page number 15 with regard to expenses, again, we've gone through the exercise of doing a 3-year stabilization. The actual expenses ranged from 243,000 up to 298,000 in the 3 prior years. We have stabilized this at $287,536. You can see how we've done that. I can answer any questions you might have on the individual line items if you wish. We've made standard adjustments such as decreasing property management to 5% of effective gross income is the actual taxes, obviously, and where there's a particular trend, we follow that trend in the estimate of that particular expense. So the stabilized expenses are $287,536. Now, moving forward, again, we have a nonprofit, and the issues that surround that. We have the same capitalization rate discussion with regard to nonprofits and the restrictions. They're not all specific to income. They are beyond that. And we have the same market chart showing actual transactions and the standard 5 to 6% range for the most part. The market participants, again, indicating for the most part 5 to 6% capitalization rate range. We have the discussion regarding the interest rate environment as of evaluation date, a lift of 4%. That's a historic rise, essentially, of 4% over essentially 1 year of time. You can imagine the impact that would have on the market. Obviously, that's going to impact capitalization rates. And all that taken into account, we've applied, again, the upper end of the standard market apartment range at 6% in our valuation. So this is summarized on page number 20. We have the actual income, the stabilized expenses, and the cap rate of 6%, giving us a final market value of $6,267,000. Now, again, the addenda materials include the actual income and expense for the subject property, and that is my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Mr. Assessor, do you have any questions for Mr. Smith?
Just a couple quick ones here. This building was built in 2007, correct?
Was built in 2007, yes.
Just looking at page 14, these market rents, do they include all ages of properties, even some up to, say, 100 years old?
These are CMHC averages, so yes, they take into account the whole range of ages, obviously.
Okay. Do you think that's a fair representation of market value for a building built in 2007?
I think given the units, the furnishings, the design specific to seniors that might not be as attractive to a normal market participant, and the fact that we're only ever so slightly under what the city has projected for the property, I do think that it is a fair indication of what the property would generate on the market, yes.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Ms. Penner, do you have any questions?
Just one, or I guess it's not, maybe, I guess it's a little clarification, but so these are, the lease agreements in place for these units are at market rate or close to, there's no discount being applied for at least.
There's no specific discount. No, they're not rent guarantee income.
And so if this property was to go on the market, it could potentially be purchased by an entity that is a for-profit.
Yes, certainly it could be. I mean, they can all be purchased by a for-profit entity. Yes, it could be. If the question is regarding the revenue, this is certainly closer to market than or at market. It is at market essentially, versus some of the rent guarantee income ones that we'll see, or we did see the first one.
Thank you. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robson, do you have any questions?
No, Madam Chair, I do not at this time.
Okay, nor do I. So is there a need for summary from either party?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
All right, we can move on to the next matter on the docket then, which is number 4. And that is, 135 Sinowick Bay. So, Mr. Assessor, please proceed when you're ready.
This one is file number 24-3924, build number 07569030600. The address is 135 Sinowick Bay. This one's pretty similar to the last one. It's a 40S property. Rollers 2025. Assessed value is at $968,000. It's an apartment 1 story high, or 1 building 4 stories high, built in 2005. Again, it's got 51 suites and 39 outdoor parking stalls. Page 3 is just the exterior photo of the property along with the Google Maps location. Page 4 is the income value summary. So it's 24 1-bedrooms, 27 2-bedrooms, 51 units at an average monthly rent of $11.44 and 3 cents. The gross potential is at $700,146 with a vacancy of 2.6%. Brings the gross effective income to $681,942. Expenses are at $287,507. Brings the NOI to $394,435 with a cap rate of 4.95%. Brings the value to $7,968,000, and that is a market value per suite of $156,000. And then page 5 again is the rent comparables. Again, try to find similar suite mixes in the area with close to the effective year built. And you can see that the average monthly rent ranges from $11.92 to $12.89, with the subject being at $11.44. Again, on page 6 is the apartment average rents from CMHC. Again, it is a newer building in 2005, so we use the year built table, and you can see that the average weighted average per unit is $13.9306. Again, on page 7 is the summary of the table above. So the CMHC potential is at $852,552, with the model rent at $700,146. That's about 18% lower than the market rents. And then it also shows again the table of the rents. Page 8 is the cap rate table. On page 9 being the cap rate evidence. And then page 11 to, oh, sorry, my computer froze. Oh, there we go. 11 to 17 is the income and expense mailers. And again, page 18 is just the summary of the property. Again, it's a seniors housing project. And then page 19 is just the map of this area of all the different buildings. And then page 20 is just the summary or some more information on the property and the floor plans. And that is my evidence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, do you have any questions?
I have no specific questions, no, thank you. Just
Thank you
the
very much.
original
Oh.
one.
Yes. Ms. Penner, do you have any questions?
No questions for me, thank you.
Mr. Robson?
No, not the similarities right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Nor do I. So, Mr. Smith, whenever you're ready, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So subject property that we are looking at is 135 Sinowik Bay. Also developed by St. James Kiwanis. This is the manor. And it was built 2 years earlier than the previous property. And we have the same number of units, 51 units, 27 two beds, 24 one bedroom apartments. Again, built in 2005, and it is a nonprofit seniors development. There's been a lot of talk with regard to age, etc. So let's look at what these properties are. You've seen the photos of the previous one and the furnishings, etc. Again, these are not luxury apartments. They're not brand new apartments. They are built with seniors in mind to provide affordable, essentially, market apartments. We're not looking at anything grand here. Again, we're looking at typically long-lasting wear surfaces, etc. So in terms of furnishings, common areas, etc. So let's look at the photos beginning on page 4. You have the exteriors of the subject. Interiors, you can see the handrails, etc. for seniors. Bump rails in many of the hallways for wheelchairs, walkers, etc. Hard-wearing flooring in the unit on page 5, as well as 6 and 7. You can see the open layout of the bathroom, height of the tub, etc. for getting in and out of. All of these features designed for seniors, wider doorways, things of that nature. Again, these are not standard market units. If you had these on the open market, would the demand from typical market participant be the same as for a standard market apartment developed at the same time? But to a normal spec, probably not quite the same, given the way that they've been built out, etc. The photos continue through page number 9. They're there for you to look at if you wish. Page 10. So we're now on the northeast corner of Sinowik Bay, again in St. James, same exact location in the Silver Heights section of the St. James area of Winnipeg. So let's move forward into the valuation, page 13. We have essentially the same rental rate structure. There is a single unit that has a lower rent for one bed. But for the most part, they are closer to the 984 than they are 645, so they're not significantly under market. So take that to mean that there's a lot of low rent ones in here. The details included in the addenda material for you to see if you wish. So the ranges are there up to 984 for one bedrooms, 1164 to 1227 for the two beds, giving you $680,940. Again, I will point out this is ever so slightly lower than what the city has projected for the subject property. Given the build out, etc., the intent of essentially being at market rent, we don't think they are out of line with market levels. If If you look at the rental rate structure in comparison to the CMHC averages, yes, these take into the wide range. They have your older properties, they also have your newer properties. So the average is exactly that, an average. These are typically at or slightly, ever so slightly below those ranges. So we believe the in-place rental income is at market level. The other thing I will point out, and this will apply to, again, all the properties. If you're an investor and you're buying this property, do you get $700,146 when you buy it? No, you get $680,000 when you buy it. So yes, that may obviously increase over time, but you're not getting that when you're buying it. So the income is the income. If it's at market, which we believe it is, then why would you be basing your purchase price on an amount that you're not receiving? So something to keep in mind with regard to market value. Moving forward, vacancy, we're not disputing that. We believe it's at market. The expense allowance, we've done 3-year stabilization. Range in the previous 3 years, 217,000 up to 291,000. We have stabilized this at $272,871. This is 41% expense allowance, just slightly below what the city has projected for the subject property. And we can skip forward into capitalization rate. I'm not going to cover the same discussion each and every time. Again, it is same as the last apartments. We have used a 6% capitalization rate in our valuation, which gives us a market value of $6,506,000. What I will point out with regard to newer developed properties, if we flip to my page number 16, the most recently constructed apartment, number 3, 2390 McPhillips, built in 2015, large complex, so a significant property, total of 90 units. It sold in 2020 at a cap rate of 5.25%. So there you have a new or newer built market apartment, recent transaction, trading at 5.25% in 2020. Cap rate for standard apartment is only going to be higher than that as of the valuation date. So taking everything into account, we've applied 6%, which gives us our final market value of $6,506,000. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Assessor, do you have any questions for Mr. Smith?
I guess I just had one because you touched on 2390 McPhillips. Sorry, 1 second. We have it as a cap rate of 4.71% using 3-year stabilize up to the 3-year stabilization of the income expense mailers up into the sale date. Do you know why there's a discrepancy between our calculation and yours?
Not specifically, because I don't know the detail involved in the city's calculation, but I do know that we looked at the actual revenue and expenses, stabilization, etc., and the actual transaction price to arrive at the cap. And I would point out that that same property, other appellants have cap rates 5.7%, etc., for the same exact property. So I can't comment on how the city's number was derived, I guess.
Okay, no, that was just the only question I had. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Penner, do you have any questions for Mr. Smith?
Just a couple little ones. I noticed in one of the photos that there's common laundry. Is that standard throughout these buildings? Or do some units have, in-suite laundry?
Oh, that's a good question, and I don't want to give you the wrong answer, but I believe they all had the common laundry. I will check as we go through them for the remainder of them, but I don't think they have in-suite laundry, no, they were designed for that.
Wondered if it was supplemental or if it was, that's kind of all they've got going. And then the one other thing was you said it's currently age restricted, and or would that, I guess I keep coming back to these same kind of questions, but would that run with the property, or that's something that's been put in place by the current organization?
Pardon me. Well, it's been put in place by the current developer owner of the property, and that is kind of the mandate. So if you were to buy the property, you'd have an entire block of seniors, right, under the leases that they have. So they would typically seniors don't tend to move as much until they need different levels of care. So that's what you would be buying. They would typically stay in place.
Thank you. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robson, do you have any questions for Mr. Smith?
No, I'll hold off at the time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Nor do I. So is there a need for summary from either party?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
All right. I'm going to suggest we take a 5-minute recess, and then we can proceed with the rest of the docket. All right. Thank you very much. Welcome back, everybody. We are now on number 5 on the docket, 100 Sinowik Bay. So, Mr. Assessor, please proceed when you're ready.
Okay, this one is file number 24-3923. The roll number is 07569134175. Address is 100 Sinnock Bay. Roll year 2025. Assessed value is at $4,280,000. It is again school tax exempt, as it is seniors housing. Is one building 3 stories high, built in 1983. Is 42 suites with 11 outdoor parking stalls. Continuing on to page 3 is just the exterior photo of the property along with the Google Maps showing the location. Excuse me. Page 4 again is the income value summary. So you can see there's 38 1-bedrooms and 4 2-bedrooms for 48 or 42 total units. The average monthly rent per unit is at $766. Gross potential rents at $386,064. Vacancy is at 2.6%. Effective gross income is at $376,026. The expenses are at $168,422. Brings the NOI to $207,604. The cap rate's at 4.85%, and that brings the value to $4,280,000, and that works out to about $102,000 per suite. Again, page 5. I tried to find similar suite mixes in the area with similar effective year builds. Like none of them are quite that close, but just closer to that. The average monthly rents for these comps range from $831 to $986, and our average monthly rent per unit is at $766. Page 6 again is the CMHC average rents. You can see that there is the zone or the market region table on the top, and then the year table on the bottom. So that brings on page 7 is the summary. So that brings the CMHC potential rent to $546,396, and Our model rent's at 386,064, and that's nearly 30% lower than the market rents. On page 8 and 9 are just the tables from where these rents came from. Page 10 is the cap rate table. Page 11 is the cap rate evidence. Then page 13 to 19 are the income and expense mailers. Page 20 again is just the little summary of the building, and that is a seniors housing. Page 21 again is the overhead view of the area. And then page 22 is just a little more information about the property. And that is my evidence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So mine are all cap rate related. So looking at the subject property here, built in 1984, and the cap rate for this particular property is 4.85%. When I look at, and there is a question in this, when I look at the other properties that we're dealing with, all in the same location, built by the same developer, etc., we have a range of kind of 4.7 to 4.9, 4.95%, and yet our development date range or construction date ranges from 1975% at a 4.8% cap rate up to 2017 at a 4.7% cap rate, so 0.1% difference. 2007 at 4.9%. Obviously, age is not everything, but I struggle to understand the model's capitalization rate development when you have properties ranging from 1975 to 2017 essentially being at the same very low cap rate. Is there any explanation, I guess, for how that model derived that?
Not that I could speak on it. It could have to do with the size of the property. I believe this is the smallest, or one of the smallest of the few, but I can't really speak on it too much besides that.
So we have 42 units here versus, I think, 51, 48, similar in size. So, and again, these will all be cap rate related. When I look at the cap rate for the subject property, and again, encompassing the other ones, we're looking at 4.7 to 4.9, essentially 4.85 for the subject. These all fall at the very extreme bottom end of the city of Winnipeg's cap rate range of 4.75 to 5.45. Is there should there not be more variability in this in terms of capitalization rate in the modeling?
Can you repeat the question? I didn't quite follow.
Okay, so again, we have a wide range of ages, but exact same location, same developer, et cetera. All of these cap rates are in that 4.7 to 4.9% cap rate range, which is the very extreme low end of the city's cap rate range. Should there not be more variability given some of the dates of construction, build out, et cetera, in the model?
Again, I can't really speak to it too much, but like I was mentioning, the size before, the current or the subject property here, in terms of gross floor area, is, I believe, the smallest of all of them. Yeah, like you said before, there's a lot of different factors that go into the cap rate. So besides that, I can't comment too much on it.
Okay, and again, and with regard to cap rate, subject property 4.85, all the other ones below 5. When the market participants are generally indicating 5% as a very bottom end, 5 to 6%, does it not suggest that the city's cap rate modeling is somewhat aggressive?
Like you're referring to the cap rate table?
Yes.
Well, I mean, some range from 4.75 and some are at 4.5. I mean,
Okay, and then looking at the looking at the model itself, and I imagine you'll be familiar with this. So in 2022, as rates changed and into 2023, the market essentially shut down. So is it not fair to say that there'd be very few transactions in the very recent time leading up to the valuation date, particularly of new build properties that the model would be based upon? There'd be very little data for it to be based on.
I can't speak to that. I'm not too sure.
Okay, those are all of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Penner, do you have any questions for the assessor?
One, please. Just referring to the cap rate table on page 10. There seems to be, there are 3 different categories there: the low rise A, and the low rise B. Can you provide any kind of context of what the differences between those different classifications?
I can't remember. I'm pretty sure high rise are over 3 or 4 stories, but I can't recall exactly. Like low rise would probably be more like townhomes and just 1 or 2 story apartments. But I'm not 100% sure.
So there's just the 3 different low rises. There's if you're not sure what the
Yeah, I'm not too sure.
Okay. That was my only question. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robson, do you have any questions?
Just looking at that same chart on page 10, do you feel that this property is very comparable to the 20th percentile within the city at 4.75? I know you used 4.85, but.
Yeah, I believe it's a fair cap rate. Again, there's a lot of factors that go into the cap rate. And again, these are 20th to 80th percentile. So there's still some that are outside of that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have a question. I don't know if this is a question that the assessor can answer, or if it would be one that would be better answered by Mr. Smith. But do you know, because all of these apartments are kind of in one bay, do you know if they are able to share parking stalls because it's kind of like the same development, or not? It was just a.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about that.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Smith?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll answer that question to start with, I guess. So subject property has 42 suites and 11 parking stalls. No, they don't share parking stalls between the various ones. If they did, they're all underparked to start with. They all have less parking stalls than the number of units, and this one is particularly low at 11 for 42. But beyond that, we have to value the property as it stands. So whether they own the other properties is somewhat, for the assessment purposes, is it doesn't matter whether they could share them or not. Yes, is my point. I'm trying to think of a better way to phrase that, but we have to look at just the one property. In any case, I'll move beyond that. I went on quite a bit at length there with regard to capitalization rate. So I represent a lot of different property managers, property management firms, individual owners, both older multifamily properties and newly built, like brand newly built, very large multifamily properties. And to a person, they are all either outraged or or laughing at the sub 5% cap rates that the city has in their modeling. It's not even a consideration that based on the environment and the market as of the valuation date that people were paying under 5%. It just does not happen. And these are very large investors ranging down to small investors, and essentially to a person, they are all in agreement. So I know that's hearsay, but that is not the market. So to have this wide range of properties constructed between 75 and 2017, all coming in within 0.1-0.15% cap rate under 5%. And the market is saying it's all 5% and well above 5%, is just not reality. So I'll get into subject property here. 100 Sinowik Bay. This is again nonprofit seniors housing. This is low income. Built in 1985. It is original to that time frame, as you'll see from the build out and the furnishings. Again, they're designed for seniors. They are somewhat smaller, the actual units themselves. And again, we're looking at hard wearing surfaces. So let's look at the page number 4. We have some exteriors. You can see design property, 3 stories, concrete block hallways. You've got the rub rails on the side, handrails for seniors' use. You can see the hard wearing flooring, concrete block walls, etc. in the units. The design of the bathrooms with the low hurdle bathtubs, etc. Small kitchens, original cabinetry and flooring, etc., etc. I won't go through it in greater detail on that. It hasn't been renovated. They replace things as needed, as nonprofits do, and it is in the condition it is in. If shared laundry, as you can see on page 10. So this is the St. James Kiwanis Lodge. The site itself is shown on page number 12. And the location is exactly the same. So let's move into valuation. So I will point out at this point that the total potential revenue that we come to for the subject property is $386,064 based on the actual rents charged for the units. See the range from where the 1 beds and the 2 beds there, appropriate for the size and vintage, etc., use of the property. And it produces the total potential rent of $386,064. Now, coincidentally or not, I would say probably not. I think this is an override, but the city uses to the penny the exact same gross potential rent. I'm assuming that this is not model driven, but has been an override. Otherwise, it wouldn't be the exact same figure. That would be very unlikely. In any case, we're in agreement on the revenue. Vacancy, standard market vacancy at 2.6%. Our expense allowance is shown on page 17. We do the 3-year history. You can see how that's done. 206,000 to 251,000 over the last 3 years. We have stabilized this at $210,108. Now, if we were to use that, that would come out to a 55.88% expense allowance as a percentage of effective gross income. This is certainly on the high side and would drive an under market value. So we are not using our stabilized expenses, but I will point out at 210,000, we're about 40,000 under what they're actually what their expenses were in the year prior. And when we reduce it to the city's estimate of 44.79%, 168,000, it drops yet further to what is that, for $42,000 less than our stabilized expenses for the year. And the stabilized is based again on market standards. So we've reduced it down to that level in order to arrive at a fair market value. But the actual expenses are reality and they are there. Our cap rate discussion, exactly the same thing. We certainly have a low income nonprofit seniors facility here. Our average rent is $766 per month, which coincidentally matches what the city has done. Using the city's expense allowance of 44.79, which again is 42,000 under our stabilized expenses, gives us an NOI exactly the same as the city, which we use a cap rate of 6% in order to arrive at our final market value of $3,460,000. Now, selection of the cap rate is exactly the same as it is with our other nonprofit properties here for all of the reasons stated. This one is quite clear. You can see the low revenue per suite per month, the high expenses, and date of construction and age with finishes, etc. I think it's quite clear that cap rate for this would be considerably different than for a standard market apartment. So that is my presentation. Our final market value is $3,460,000, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Assessor, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Ms. Penner?
No questions for me, thank you.
Mr. Robson?
Oh, sorry, no questions as well.
Thank you. Nor do I. Is there a need for summary by either party?
No, thank you.
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, then we can move on to the next matter on the docket. Bear with me for 1 second. It is number 6 on the docket, number 90 Sinowick Bay. Mr. Assessor, please proceed when you're ready.
This is file number 24-4112. The roll number is 07569134170. And this is 90 Sinowick Bay. Roll years 2025. Assessed value is at $10,474,000. It is again a 40S apartment, 1 building, 4 stories high, built in 2015. There's 53 suites and 14 outdoor parking stalls. Page 3 again is just showing the exterior photo along with the Google Maps location. Page 4 is the income value summary. So it shows 35 1-bedroom, 18 2-bedroom, for a total of 53 units. Average monthly rent per unit is $1,306.67. Brings the gross potential rent to $831,042 at a vacancy rate of 2.6%. Brings the effective gross income to $809,435. The expenses are at $306,695. Brings the NOI to $502,740 with a cap rate of 4.8%. Brings the value to $10,474,000, and that works out to about $197,000 per suite. Again, page 5 is the rent comparables. So trying to find similar suite mixes in the area. Yeah, it's tough to find new builds like this that are super close by sometimes. So these are as close as I could find for this property, and they range from $1,252 to $1,428 rent per unit, and the subject being at $1,306.67. Again, page 6 is the average apartment rents from CMHC, and I use the year built because this is a quite newly built building. So you could see that the average rent per unit is $14.80.89. And then page 7 shows the summary of this with the CMHC market potential rent being at $941,844 and the model rent being at $831,042. So that's about 12% lower than the market potential. Again, on the bottom of the page 7 is just the table showing where these values came from. Cap rates on page 8. Then our cap rate evidence on page 9. And again, the INEs are on page 11 to 18, and then page 19 is just info on the property. Page 20 is just the map of the area. Page 21 is just more information on the property and the floor plans. And then you can see on page 22 are the permits for the new construction of the building from 2014. On page 23 is more permits for the property. And then you can see page 24 is from the plans with the value of construction overall being at $9 million. And that is my evidence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do have some questions. So just with regard to the permit detail and application information, etc. The city's aware, of course, that permit value, cost of construction does not directly translate to market value, and that we are not relying on that in determining market value.
I wouldn't say I'm relying on it, but it's still some support for valuation.
Okay, so let's discuss cost then. So when the city's aware then when a developer builds a property, their cost to construct that and the recouping of that expense and their profit occurs over the timeline of their holding of the property and the mortgage that's placed on it, which essentially means that original cost of construction is not market value. The city's aware of those details.
Yeah, I'm just saying it was support of it. I would say if someone built a building for $9 million, they wouldn't sell it the next day for less than that.
And the panel, of course, is aware that we're not relying on permit values. Anyway, I'll move beyond that. I do have other questions. The comparables as well as the CMHC year of construction comps, these would be in relation to newer construction properties, correct?
Are you referring to page 6?
So page 5 and page 6. Certainly page 6 indicates 2015 and newer. So those would be all standard market apartments built since 2015.
Yeah.
And with those standard market apartments, new built, they would typically have full kitchens. In many cases have, as many new build properties do, have more amenities, have underground parking, things of that nature for a lot of newer built properties, some gyms, things of that nature.
That I can't speculate on.
So in your, it's always hard to ask these questions, and I'm not meaning to put you on the spot, but in your experience, do newer built apartment properties tend to have more amenities for their residents?
I don't know. That's a tough question to ask. I'm not too sure.
I agree. It is a tough question to ask, and I don't mean to put you on the spot by doing that. You have to ask it. All right, those. So this was 2015 build, and the cap rate here again is 4.8%.
I believe so. Yeah, 4.8. Yeah.
Okay, those are all of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Penner, do you have any questions for the assessor?
No, thank you. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Robson, do you have any questions?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Nor do I. So, Mr. Smith, please proceed with your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So just to, again, as the city has provided the information, the stated permit value and stated application cost of construction, $9 million. So it needs to be clear that when a property is built and the developer develops it, they take out development loans, obviously, to do so, and they build the property, they then own it, and their time horizon is typically the length of term of the amortization of the mortgage, whether that's 15 or 20 years or whatever it may be in that sphere. So the original cost to construct is financed and it doesn't translate into market value. So a $9 million cost of construction doesn't mean that the property can't legitimately, based on market evidence, be valued below $9 million. Because it costs that much to construct on day one. Doesn't mean that you're going to it wouldn't necessarily be worth less than that. You don't build it to sell right away. The other thing to take into account is depreciation as well. So we're looking at a 2015 build and moving beyond that. So as with other panels, don't believe any weight should be placed upon permit values included in the briefs. Beyond that, yes, it was built in 2015, but it's an assisted living center. It's not a standard market apartment. It's a nonprofit assisted living facility. So they're not standard units, much more so than the 55 plus seniors rentals that we've been looking at. These are specific to that set of seniors that are looking for assisted living facility where they need their meals to be provided. They need additional care in many circumstances up to a limited level. They're looking for their recreation to be provided on site, et cetera, et cetera. So what we're looking at is a very different animal than a standard market apartment, and different indeed than the ones that we were just looking at. Beyond what I was just describing, let's look at the units. Well, let's look at the building itself to start with. So exteriors on page 4. Then we move into the inside. So you have your common dining room top of page 5. Bottom of page 5, you have a commercial kitchen that services that. You have the extra wide hallways with the seniors rub rails, etc. on page 6. You move into page 7, you can see a suite that an occupant has left, and they're obviously having to do a lot of touch up to the walls, etc. What I will point out at the bottom of page 7 is you can see the quote unquote kitchen facility that they have for these residents. So there are no full kitchens. You have essentially a bar fridge, a sink, and some cabinetry. There's no microwave, there's no stovetop, there's no range, there's no oven. They don't want residents cooking in the suites for obvious reasons. You can see also the size and the layout of it. It's very minimal, not a normal market apartment. Couldn't rent for close to what a normal market apartment of its age or indeed other ages would rent for. The facility simply isn't there, and it's not designed to be put in either. The layout is not is not designed for you to add a full kitchen in later. And if you did, that would be a significant additional cost. So beyond that, let's look at the rest of the space. Again, long-lasting hard-wearing surfaces, not luxury, smaller suites, smaller bedroom size, etc. The misleading thing with assisted living facilities and the size per gross floor area or something is that the entire building is taken into account with that. So that means all of the additional common areas that these facilities have on the main floor, and in some cases on individual floors, is taken into account. So you have a standard market apartment, whether it's new or old. Newer apartments tend to have more amenities, but not close to what an assisted living facility has in terms of area. So these have the full commercial kitchen, you have the dining room, you have a gym, you have a library, you have a gathering room, you have all of these various locations. In many cases, they have individual lounges at the end of hallways, things of that nature. It all adds up to a lot more space than a typical market apartment. And dividing the overall area by the number of units doesn't mean that the units are larger than typical apartments. They're actually smaller and much more basic. So that is the facility that we're looking at. This is St. James Terrace, built in 2015, 55 total units. More of them one beds, 36 one beds, 19 two beds. And we can skip it forward into the valuation itself. Exact same location, obviously. So with assisted living facilities, the rent or the charge that you pay, your occupancy charge, takes into account the additional services that you get, that being all of your meals, all of the additional services that are supplied, such as travel to shopping centers, shopping, various other services that they provide, such as recreation, all of these things that cost money that you're paying for in order to. That's why you want to be in an assisted or independent living facility, is to take to have that ease of lifestyle at that particular age, obviously. So all that being said, the rents charged are not market rents. They're well beyond market rents. So we can't rely on what they pay to have any indication of market rent. This is standard practice, hasn't changed in years. The city acknowledges this as well. So our exercise is, what would an appropriate market rent for the property be? Well, in our case, we are fortunate in that subject property, 90 Sinnewick, is built very close in time to the property at 75 Sinnewick, which I will point out do have full kitchens, etc. That one was built in, I'm on my page 15 here, by the way. That property was built in 2017, also a seniors nonprofit, but 55 seniors rental with standard market rental rates. So what were the rates there? Well, they were $10.47 on average for one beds and $12.17 on average for two beds. So are those appropriate? Well, they're probably slightly high. Again, we don't have full kitchens here. We have no kitchens. And the units are specifically designed for seniors. Now, that being said, I haven't adjusted them. I haven't adjusted them downwards. I've gone with those values. So we have a total gross potential rental income of $729,780. Now, if you were to look at other market apartments built in 2017 and look at what the rents that they receive, well, they'll be more luxurious. The units themselves, the amenities will be considerably different. And obviously the rental rates would be well beyond what you would achieve in a property without kitchens. without question. So that's the background on rent. I won't cover it beyond that. Looking at market vacancy, I provided some additional detail with regard to greater vacancy on newer built properties. I'm not applying a greater vacancy. I deferred to the 2.6, but that information is there for you to see. The expense allowance stabilization is done on page 17. The 3 prior years are shown. They range from 379,000 up to 440,000. I have stabilized this with standard market changes where necessary, and we come in at $406,462 on average. Now, these are specifically real estate costs alone. We've deducted anything else that has anything to do with the operation of the business. We've reduced costs for hydro, things of that nature. And we're coming in at 406, 462. Now, pardon me, starting to lose my voice again. That comes out to 57.18% of effective gross income. Now, obviously, we can't use that figure as it will produce a misleading below market value. So the actual costs are there, but we have deferred to the City of Winnipeg's expense allowance of 37.89%, which gives us $269,324 versus the stabilized expenses of $406,000. Capitalization rates, all of the same information is there for you. In addition, I will point out, we are looking also at assisted living. So the exercise is to separate the business and treat it again as a standard market apartment. What would a normal, well-educated investor pay for that on the marketplace, and what factors would they take into account? So let's look at my first page, number 18. Comparison of independent living and assisted living projects. They include a business component, makes comparison to general market apartment properties somewhat inappropriate. This characteristic of the property type would be expected to increase the risk inherent in the investment and should be reflected in a premium over cap rates for more conventional investments. Now, we're separating that out. We're not considering the business, so that doesn't need to be taken into account. In addition, it must be recognized that the marketplace for tenants for independent and assisted living universe is much reduced from the general market apartment. Typically, you have older residents, obviously, not necessarily only 75 plus, but you're certainly 60, 65 plus for the most part, much reduced universe. But beyond that, they also need to have the ability to pay the significant fees that they pay to get all of those services. So 2,500 plus per month at a minimum. Now, again, our exercise is to treat it as a standard market apartment. So we're somewhat setting that aside. But what I will show you in the middle of the page is interesting, and this is specific to seniors housing. We have a Canadian property valuation article, Canadian Property being the Appraisal Institute of Canada's publication. This one article is titled Valuation of Seniors Housing. Now, it is older, but we're looking at theory and not the actual capitalization rates. So the following graph taken from the article shows a comparison of standard market apartments, seniors A housing, so kind of 55 plus seniors housing, and then personal care properties. So you can see the trend lines for each of those. And really what I'm showing here is the delta between standard market apartments and seniors housing A, which is 55 plus rental essentially. At the top line obviously being care facilities. So significant delta. it's the same all along, the lines don't cross, and I'm not in any way saying that the cap rates should be X amount. We're looking at historical data here. What I'm showing is that these properties trade for a greater cap rate than do standard market apartments. That holds true for the seniors housing 55 plus that we've been looking at all along today, as well as, in this case, the assisted living that we're looking at. There's a bit more text there at the bottom with regard to independent and assisted living community cap rate estimates. That's also somewhat historical from 2015, so it's just indicating higher capitalization rates in markets that typically have much more aggressive caps than Winnipeg do. Again, I'm not saying these are cap rates that should be relied on for the subject. I'm just showing that cap rates are higher for this category. Middle of page 19, CV Richard Ellis, and this is particularly telling, I think. CV Richard Ellis, major market brokerage, published a Canadian Investor Sentiment Survey for 2023, in which investors were asked about their outlook on seniors housing cap rates for 2023. Only 5% of respondents foresaw no change in cap rates for 2023, with the remainder of respondents seeing between a 0.25 and 0.75% basis point increase in cap rates for this asset class. So you can see the actual chart there, giving you the breakdown of that investor sentiment. So the market is saying cap rates are higher for this asset class, and we see them getting higher for 2023. Pardon me. All right. The remainder of our cap rate evidence remains the same. It's all there. Again, our newer built, larger apartment on McPhillips, trading in 2020 for a cap rate of 5.25%, essentially indicating the lower end of the market for properties such as this. We have all of the same information, and including the interest rate environment, as already discussed. I'm confident that all of my discussion of all of the previous properties will carry forward and be reflected in the decisions for the subject property. If you take a side-by-side comparison, standard market apartment and an assisted living facility, and you look at it as an investor, what capitalization rate would you apply to this? What would you apply to that? There's obviously significantly increased costs, significantly increased risk in taking on a property such as this. If you were to make it a standard market apartment, which is our exercise, you don't have kitchens. You have a facility designed for seniors. What is your draw for that property going to be? What are they going to pay in rent? Is it a limited pool of tenants? How do you deal with the kitchen situation, et cetera, et cetera? So obviously there are significantly greater risks there than there are for a standard market apartment, as there are for other seniors residents as well, this in particular. So my evaluation is summarized on page 24. The rental income, again, taken from sister property built at the same time of a seniors 55 plus rental in the exact same location with full kitchens, slightly larger units, et cetera, et cetera. That's where the revenue comes from. Pretty much bang on what they would receive in the market, one would suggest, except they don't have standard market kitchens. So arguably, that's probably on the high side. But I've deferred to that. You can see how it is below what the city has projected. However, our stabilized expenses, 406,000, which we haven't run with, but those are the actual expenses. We've deferred to the city's expense allowance percentage, giving us 269,324. Gives you our final NOI of $441,482 capped at 6%. So I haven't changed the cap rate for this over the other seniors apartment. I didn't feel that was necessarily something I was comfortable with, but keep this in perspective. Everybody is indicating anything below 5% is not reality in the market. All investors that I've spoken with, property managers, etc., that just doesn't exist. You have a recently sold new property trading at 5.25%, 5% in some people's calculations, 5.7 in others, essentially setting the low end of the market. Market then moves on with interest rates rising over 4%. And we have the additional risk component for these type of facilities. We're only at the upper end of the standard market apartment transaction range of 5 to 6%. We're not above it. We're just at the upper end of normal market apartments. So we've used 6%, and this gives us our final market value of $7,358,000. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Assessor. Do you have any questions for Mr. Smith?
No questions, thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Penner. Do you have any questions?
No questions for me, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robson.
I'll also round out with no questions.
Thanks. I just had one question, actually. So, sorry, let me just flip to my note. Oh, yes. So the Mr. Smith, you had that there's 55 suites in this building?
Yes, there are 55.
Okay. And the city assessor had 53 suites in the building.
Yes, there's actually 55.
Okay. So, and what was the break? Okay. Oh, I have the breakdown here. Never mind. Okay.
That's on page 3.
Yes. Sorry. Thank you very much. That was my only question. Is there a need for summary from either party?
No, thank you.
All right. Then we can move on to the last matter on this evening's docket, which is number 775 Sinowick Bay. So, Mr. Dighton, please proceed when you're ready.
This one's 24-3921. Roll number 07569030700. The address is 75 Sinowick Bay. Again, this is roll year 2025. Assessed value is at $8,723,000. It is a 40S apartment, one building, 3 stories high, built in 2017. And this one has 48 suites and 72 outdoor parking stalls. And then page 3 is just the exterior photo of the property. It's actually just a rendering because I couldn't get an exterior photo. And then the bottom is just the location of the subject property. Page 4 is the income value summary showing 25 1-bedrooms, 23 2-bedrooms, for a total of 48 units at an average monthly rent of $12,1028. Gross potential rents at $697,121. Vacancies at 2.6%. Effective gross incomes at $678,996. Expenses are at $269,018. Brings NOI to $409,978 at a cap rate of 4.7%. Brings the value to $8,723,000, and that comes to a market value per suite of about $182,000. And page 5 is just the market or the rent comparables. You can see it ranges from $12.52 to $14.28. Monthly rent per unit, and the subject's at $12,1028. And page 6 is the CMHC average rents for year construction. You can see that the average per unit's at $1522.75. Page 7 shows the summary of this table, and it brings up market CMHC potential rent at 877,104. And the model rent is at 697,121, so we're 21% lower than the market rents. Then page 8 is just the table showing these rents. Page 9 is the cap rate table. Page 10 is the cap rate evidence table. And then page 12 to 20 is the income and expense mailer. Again, page 21 is just a summary of the property features. Page 22 is just the overhead view of all the different buildings in this area. Page 23 is just more information on the property with the floor plans. And again, page 24 are the permits for this property. You can see the total construction value is at $8.5 million. And then the last page at 26 is just the some information on the property from the builder. And that is my evidence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, do you have any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Penner, any questions?
No questions for me, thank you.
Mr. Robson?
No questions either.
Nor do I. So, Mr. Smith, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So 75 Sinowick Bay, built in 2017. This is, again, a nonprofit seniors housing facility constructed by Kiwanis in the exact same location. It is 55 plus seniors market rental. I will point out, this is the property that I was referring to when I was taking the taking the rents to apply to the assisted living facility that we're just looking at, which is number 90 Sinwick. So this property has more parking stalls. The other one had 11 stalls for 48 units, 52 unit, whatever the unit count there was, 55, I think it was. In any case, significantly less parking there. And smaller units, no kitchens, etc. This is where those rents have come from. Just want to point that out. So 75 Sinowick, built in 2017. We have a total of 48 units, 23 one beds, 25 two beds. With the owned and operated as a nonprofit with the mandate to provide affordable rental accommodation for seniors. That is the background. Let's look at the facility. So some exteriors on page 4, interiors on page 5. What I will point out, the size of that hallway. So that is, again, specific to seniors' needs. Typically, you're not going to find that in most newer build facilities. You have a common area at the bottom of page 5. And then we get into the units themselves. So again, look at the layout, construction, hardwaring, durable surfaces, not luxury new build apartments. So will they be lower than most new builds apartments? Yes, they will. If you look at any of the advertising for, I would say 90-95% of new build apartments, they all advertise luxury suites, luxury this, luxury that, you know, like we all need luxury. But anyway, very different animal than what we're looking at here. That's not what is designed. That's not what's built out. And beyond that, they're again designed for seniors. You can see that from the bathroom display with the entryway, open layout, low tub, all of these features that don't necessarily cross over to the standard market. Got your kitchens there, etc., etc. So it is new built, but it is different from your standard new build market apartment. Same location, same site essentially. We move into the value, page number 13. I give you the rental rate range for the subject. 1 beds from 907 to 978, 2 beds from 1177 to 1277, giving you $653,000 and 28 cents. So bear with me. If we look at that again in comparison to your luxury new build apartments, well, it's going to be a little bit different in terms of the rent profile, certainly. We believe it is at market. It is certainly comparable to average rental rate ranges for the area. If you look at those, the degree of renovation that's been done to standard market apartments, many older apartments are, in terms of finishes, etc., somewhat nicer than some of the newer apartments. So that should be borne in mind as well. Looking at expenses, we defer again to vacancy rate. 2.6 is appropriate. Can be higher in seniors, but we're not asking for additional vacancy. We do the stabilization of expenses at the bottom of page 15. In this case, we only had 2 years which to refer to. But you can see the range from the prior 2 years was 313 to 320,000. When I do the stabilization, you can see the result comes to 329,763. The R&M, which often comes up, I will point out, comes in at $1,461 per suite. Which is certainly well within the normal range. So there's no additional operating expenses from R&M that are unexpected or anything of that nature. The stabilized expenses come out to 51.85% of effective gross income, which again, if we were to use it, would produce an NOI that would be too low and essentially provide a misleading market value. So we're not going to do that, but those are the actual expenses of operating that facility. They're not increased because it's a seniors facility or anything of that nature. It's simply what it costs to operate. So we've deferred to the city's 39.62%, giving you expense allowance of $252,003. This is roughly $80,000 lower than the stabilized expenses for the property. All of our cap rate commentary remains the same. And we have applied 6% as we have with our other properties here today in our valuation. So page number 21 gives us our summary in relation to the city's projections. Our income, 653,028, is at market level. The expenses are considerably higher, so we've deferred to the city's expense allowance. And we come in at an NOI of $384,047. So the rent is appropriate for market for what you're getting. The expenses are on the low side, but we're using them. The actual expenses are much higher, obviously. So the NOI there is being generous, essentially. Capped at 6%. We come to a final market value of $6,401,000. And that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Deitchen, do you have any questions for Mr. Smith?
Yeah, just one quick one. I guess we're talking about cap rates a lot. So the previous property, or this property, has more parking, full kitchens, and is newer than the last property. How come you chose to use the same cap rate?
I used the same cap rate because I wanted to be, well, you need to be reasonable in the final market value that you're arriving at, right? So you look at all of the components. So parking is certainly one component in terms of what people would pay to rent there, etc. This one has a few more parking stalls than it does suites. Obviously, the other one had 11 versus 40 or different. Most of them are underparked. This one happens to have more parking. Is that going to tip the scales necessarily? Well, the impact that it would have would not be on the cap rate, it would be on the rental rate that it would draw on the market. But looking at the project as a whole, we think the rent rates are appropriate, so there's no adjustment in cap rate strictly for parking, certainly.
How about in terms of the full kitchens? Wouldn't that reduce the risk for this property? What was the last one?
Well, we've had, how many properties have we had today? 7. This is the same as all of the other seniors 55 plus nonprofits that we were discussing. So I've gone through all of that detail. We're not, is it different than the other one? Yeah. Should I have applied a higher cap rate to the assisted living? I certainly could have, and I was making that point that we're being very conservative in the valuations that we're placing here. So it doesn't mean that this cap rate should be lower. It means, if anything, that one could have been higher. But looking at the ultimate market value, we felt that it was appropriate to be at that level.
Wait, no further questions, thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Penner.
No questions for me. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Robson.
No questions on my end. Thank you.
Thank you. Nor do I. Is there a need for a summary from either party?
I think I'm frozen. Well, I guess just quickly, I guess this is more of a summary. Well, we have to look at the highest and best use and use market rates. And we are well below the market rents for all these properties. Along with that, our cap rates are well supported by our cap rate evidence, especially for the last few that are newer. At 2390 McPhillips is 2015 built, and it's at 4.71%. And some of the newer sales are in the 3s and 4.8%, 4.01%. And these are actual sales that happen for apartments that have sold. And I think that more than supports our information. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So in looking at, pardon me, in looking at valuing these properties, you're looking to value them for market value, as in what would that property transact for on the marketplace? Not a change of that property, but that specific property with the restrictions and risks, etc., in place for that property. So if I were to look at buying 6 out of the 7 properties here today that are not market apartments, you're looking at buying that. You have all of the things that we've discussed that raise your risk level. You have the shift in interest rates, etc., etc. The market participants, everybody indicating anything below 5, not that 5 is the number, it's not, but anything below 5 is not even remotely reality. You can't say, well, we're valuing it as a market apartment, it should be this. Well, that's not market value. It won't transact as a market apartment. You value it down to the NOI. Based on that, what would it draw on the market? What would appropriate expenses be, etc. And then you capitalize it at the appropriate rate to arrive at your fair market value, which is what we've done in every circumstance along the way. So capitalization rate, the market is saying 5 to 6%, certainly not below that. There are obviously outliers, but the market is not sub 5 is what I will indicate. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have heard all the items scheduled, and this hearing is now adjourned. Good evening, everyone.
Thanks. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.